Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SafeSpace Podcast. I am Vijihari, and today we have a truly special guest joining us. Our focus is on a topic that impacts us all, creating safe workplaces, strategies, and best practices. And this episode is something that's very special because today, December 9th, is the 11th anniversary when the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act came into effect on 2013. So today is 11th anniversary. So very happy to have you today with us, Jeevitha. So just to give a quick, brief intro about Ms. Jeevitha. Ms. Jeevitha Shanmugam, Head of HR at Kapitus. Jeevitha is a results-oriented and seasoned HR professional with a wealth of experience in recruitment domain. She has worked with Fortune 500 companies, medium-sized enterprises, and startups specializing in high-volume, hard-to-fill, and niche market roles. She is renowned for improving retention, streamlining hiring practices, and helping organizations gain a competitive advantage. Welcome, Ms. Jeevitha. We are thrilled to have you here on this 11th anniversary.
I'm excited to be a part of this conversation.
Now, so, with that, we will get into our segments of our podcast. To start with, before we deep dive into our episode, wanted to understand what really inspires you. What are the topics? What has inspired you to pursue a career in HR? How has the experience really shaped your perspective in creating safe and inclusive spaces?
Thank you, Vijay. I've always thought that I am a people's person. So, it's easier for people to open up to me, and that's why I chose HR to be a career. And it's an ongoing journey. So, throughout the start of this career till now, I've always felt that the workplaces are my second home because I and all of us mostly spend one third of our time working and driving ideas for betterment. So this is an initiative that actually drove me to, just go one step forward in supporting and creating a safe workplace, not just keeping it functional, but also creating an inclusive and a safe environment.
Lovely. And anything about your personal journey to reach this level where you are now?
So I've worked with diverse organizations with unique challenges. Basically, I started off with one of the consulting organizations first, and then I moved to a startup, and then again back to a global organization. So I worked with different diverse cultural organizations, and where the major challenges that we have faced basically is a cultural impact, communication over cultural impact. And that's why it's important to talk about a workplace culture. And when we talk about a workplace culture, it's certainly important that we talk about having a safe and an inclusive with diversity kind of an environment.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So, our next segment, we move into understanding the strategies and best practices in creating a safe workplace. And to start that off, Jeevita, can you share any particular tricky situation of harassment in your career as a HR or as an IC committee member or as a victim? Anything that you have experienced that you would like to share with the audience on what you faced and how you overcame that?
Thank you for bringing up this sensitive topic because there are so many cases that I've come across in my career. But there was one of a case that comes up to my mind because it stood out for just one reason, addressing in the gray area. And that is going to be one of the common challenges that every HR, everybody in this, people working in organizations will definitely would have faced it. So one of the employees, came forward with a complaint, not very sure whether he or she had to make that complaint or not. So that's how the conversation initially started off. So they came forward with a complaint saying that they had a very uncomfortable conversation. They were a part of an uncomfortable conversation, So the type of the complaint was very, very subtle. And it did not tick off the boxes of a sexual harassment, but it definitely had that undertone of it. So we can definitely say that the path was set towards having the sexual harassment forthcoming in the next few months. So the undertone was certainly there, but it was very, very subtle. And it would, the ambiguity was so, developed that we couldn't judge, we couldn't call it as a workplace harassment either. So that's when we decided that everybody who's going to be a part of the IC committee, the HR and the external consultant, is going to have a problem in addressing the gray area. Just like how the person who walked up to us does not know whether it is a harassment or not. And this is the same kind of a phase that's going to happen with everybody who's going through the investigations. So as an initial start, what we did is we wanted to understand the employee's perspective first. So the first thing that we did was we asked them to speak up. So when they started to pour down their perspectives, their thoughts, their feelings as to how they were put in that situation, how they felt during that situation, I think that's where you build the trust, right? So we listened. We became a part of the conversation. We tried to understand how they felt during that phase and what kind of an impact it had on them. And then came in the investigation where we had to keep it very, very distinct, where we spoke to multiple people, the team members, people who are colleagues, who sit next to them, and then gather all the evidences from the communication channels, emails or word says, gossips, everything. We had to gather everything. Every single information has to be filtered. And as a part of a group measure, we gave the complete team a sensitivity training to understand that when, even if it is a gray area, it is important to be brought to notice. So the sensitivity training was the first thing that we spoke to the team. And on top of that, the person who had created such a problem, we had to put them on a one-on-one coaching, making sure, telling them, making them understand the core values of the organization. And such kind of an attitude or behavior is definitely not accepted, not only in the current organization, or any organization for that perspective. And
Brilliant.
then for the person who raised the complaint, we definitely try to give her a therapy. We put her across for a counseling and a therapy where he or she was able to, talk freely. And we had to reassure the person that we are in the right path, and what she or she has done was a really brave and a great job paving way for a positive change in a culture like this.
Hmm.
That definitely had an impact in my career, because the gray area is something that nobody wants to speak about, and nobody wants to define the gray area too. And I was really happy that the person came forward trying to understand what the real gray area looks like.
Wonderful. I think a brilliant example. So that also kind of took me back on the multiple cases that I've handled such cases. So what I always go with is three thumb rules. Okay, the first is, was it sexual in nature, right? So that is something. At least any line around sexual theme. Was there any sexual connotations? The second thumb rule that I go with is on whether there was an impact on the individual, whether it was intended or not. Was there an impact that the complainant felt? Number three, was it unwelcome, right? And all these three thumb rules are connected with an and clause. So all the three have to be satisfied for us as internal committee to take it up. But all said and done, even if one of them fails, definitely forward to the HR, and HR can look into it. And what you said brilliantly says, giving sensitization, making them go through the training, giving them therapy. See, all these are very, very valid outcomes, and also helps in prevention from future instances. Well said, Jeevitha. Yes. So the next question: how can HR ensure that at your workplace all your safety policies are now, those despite compliance, are not just a compliance check mark, but in spirit, organizations are doing it, employees are adhering to it.
So Again, HR's work is not just your policies and check boxes, right? Just because I fill out an annual filling a posh form says that I don't have any posh cases, doesn't mean it is not there. There are still the gray areas which I was addressing earlier. So to begin with, what we would like to, foster is setting up the core values. The HR and the leadership team takes a commitment saying that we need to set the core values right, and it has to be driven from the top, meaning all the leaders are going to drive it from the top to bottom kind of an approach. So they set themselves as a model example, and from then the managers re-emphasize on the policies and the changes to the setting up the culture, and the employees are the ones who inflict on the culture.
Lovely. The next question is, how can HR ensure the support is provided to the complainant and respondent as well? A lot of times, one is a lot of victimization has happened, harassment, discrimination could have happened to the complainant, and even the respondent could be going through a lot of mental trauma because of the defamation which people are talking about. So, what can organizations or HR specifically do to support such employees?
So, as a part of the measure, again, setting up a very, very clear policy is definitely there in the picture, because that's the place where you define what is right and what is wrong, and what is admitted in the organization, what is intolerable. So defining a policy comes first, and then you have the reporting channels. You encourage open communication. We send out employee surveys. We talk to people, empowering those employee connects where the employees talk to HR on a weekly or a monthly basis to make sure they feel they're able to share their ideas about their environment, their team members, or anything that's bothering them. So that'll be the first step towards the pavement, because when the HR talks to the employee, they kind of sense how the employee reacts. The more we talk to one person, we get the hang of how that person is. So when we see there is certain signs of withdrawals or depression, that's when I think it's important to start addressing and start learning more on the employee's perspective. So the silence is definitely a great key here. Not every employee is going to be, verbal about coming forward to bringing in a complaint. I think the first thing that HR takes initiative is to look at changes in the behavior. Withdrawal symptoms, depressions, or being alone, not participating, not collaborative, are those are the symptoms that where we say that it's not the employee is not feeling very safe or is not being very inclusive. So I think it's really important to enable the feedback surveys, the employee connect, so that we open up multiple open communication channels where they're able to voice their concerns. And on top of it, re-emphasizing on the policy comes from the top to the bottom level, where the leadership emphasis on building trust within the organization, and the employee builds on having more respect in the organization. I think both of them have to work hand in hand to make things work.
Excellent. And now that we've seen what supports provided to an individual at the org level, as an HR, what are your red flags to understand whether the culture is unsafe for employees? What are your red flags?
So ideally, the first noticeable point would be your higher attrition rate. The amount of people leaving within a certain span of time is going to definitely define, and the reasons behind it. So that's the reason why we do exit interviews, to understand what's the exact reason of people leaving, and that can be one of the pointers. And the second pointer, which also throws in a lot of insights, is going to be your employee collaborations. How do they collaborate with each other? What is the engagement ratio? What is the engagement score that we are reflecting? Do people join the trainings? Do they join meetings? Do they join the fun Fridays? Do they join the HR connects? Are they being very conversationalist, or are they are just joining in, just listening? It's going to be a one-sided conversations. I think those two factors drive most of the pointers. On top of it, we have the training surveys that we do, and the other kind of engagement activities which we do, which are going to carry very minuscule level of scores, but both categories are your attrition level and your employee engagements.
Wonderful. I think brilliantly said, whether people are attending Fun Friday celebrations or skipping them. I think that talks a lot. I think when we address even belongingness, that is one great measure, whether the employee is actually feeling the sense of belongingness at the workplace. So, very well said. The next question is, could you highlight some of the most effective strategies or best practices that organizations can adopt in truly creating a safe and inclusive workplace?
So, like I said, it's important to lead by examples. So, we start with building the core values, sit with the CXOs to build the core values for the organization. I think that's a great DEI initiative, which will also set up the work culture. So, we ask the leaders to champion those initiatives first, and then the managers take lead from there. They follow their leaders, who are going to be the CXOs, the leadership, the management team. They pick the cues from there, and then they reinforce the policies that is already in place. And how do we make it better is going to be a commitment that is from everybody in the organization. Any new ideas, any new events, any new activities, anything can be put forth, and the suggestions would be definitely considered by the HR or by the management team, or a particular committees can be set to enable much more communication so that we get more innovative ideas to do things better.
Yeah. So include the employees in all these strategies so that you can create an inclusive workplace. Lovely. I think very well said. And moving on to the next segment, Jeevitha, in terms of bursting some myths around sexual harassment. The first myth for you is workplace safety is only about preventing physical accidents.
Hmm. I think this is a misconception because it's not just physical stuff anymore. We talk about, we spend one third of our time at offices, right, doing our work, having engaging with conversations, be it normal meetings or just fun conversations, or just one-on-ones with your managers, your HR, your anybody in the organization. We spend one third of the time. So I think it's more about having your psychological and mental health being as well being monitored there, because this is going to have an impact on the way we think and how we think and what we think. I think this is a very, very common misconception.
Myth two, safe and inclusive workplaces benefit only women or few employees from specific backgrounds or from minority groups.
Oh my God, this is a very, very common misconception where I come across this in every posh meeting or every women connect that I run across in my organization. So people come out saying women have different committee groups, we have different channels, and we are being favored over this, and this is an environment safe enough for women. But when we call it as an inclusive environment, I think everybody is going to be a part of it. When we talk about fostering a cultural environment where everybody is going to feel safe and inclusive, it means everyone who's a part of this organization is going to be going through the same phase. I think this is a very, very common misconception.
Right. And myth number three, creating a safe, inclusive workplace is a responsibility mainly with HR.
So this is where I'd like to have my opinion a little different, because I believe in a top-down approach, because things can be, brought down from the top. So parents teach us good habits, and we learn from them. Just like how this is a common example, parents are basically people with experience who have crossed our age and have ventured into the new set of an age. So just like that, leaders, managers, the management team who is at the top have scaled up with a certain set of experience, have gone through different types of diversity, and when they take the initiatives to drive the trust from the top to the managers and to the HR, I think it becomes an inclusive an opportunity for every one of us to contribute to a workplace culture, because we are talking about every person in this organization, and it's not just the designation, it becomes an individual responsibility. Accountability is for everyone.
Yeah, brilliant. I think very well said. I think top down is something that I keep talking about whenever I work with leaders. I keep telling them, hey, you have a very, very important role when you are going out there, especially as women leaders, right? I'm sure even women leaders, they have crossed all levels to reach that position. I'm sure they have also gone through harassments in their schools, colleges, work, career
Correct.
as they're progressing. I keep telling them, as women leaders, talk about your experiences, how you overcame that. That will give confidence to every woman that, hey, my leader has also gone through this. Let me also open up and speak up. Let me
Correct.
also act on it. That gives the trust. I think that's a brilliant thing. So, as HR alone, it cannot be driven, definitely. The next myth is my favorite personal one, which I heard it from so many HR folks. If employees are not complaining, then my workplace is a safe workplace, and I don't really need to do many safe initiatives, or I don't have to really work on it.
So you're right on this front because I've faced similar, comments from the HR on this perspective. So I beg to differ here because silence is going to be your greatest enemy. You don't know what's really brewing in that corner when people are silent. So how I deduce silence is a lack of trust is where I drive it, and again the fear of retaliation. I think this is the two reasons people do not come forward if there are any issues that they have. And I think we need to focus on working against it because fear of retaliation, I think we need to set up clear code of conduct and policies which talk about non-retaliation policies. And when it comes to lack of trust, trust can be driven from the top down approach where the leaders come out championing the trust, building trust within the team. And respect has to be given from a bottom top kind of an approach. It has to be fostered within employees first, and then it cascades to the manager and then to the leaders. It has to work both ways.
Brilliant, brilliant. I think I like to add one where probably even trust on the internal committee members. That yes, I can trust the internal committee members. They will hear me out. They will give me justice. I think that is also very, very crucial. But definitely, from my experience, Jivita, what I have seen is we typically at during our employee awareness workshops and everything, we do a subtle survey with employees, and we've done this with more than 1,000 plus organizations, or 1,000, 2,000 plus workshops we've done. And I've done the survey across these 2,000 workshops. One thing that I've seen the pattern is that wherever organizations have done a lot of prevention measures, where they keep talking about it again and again, there the percentage of harassment in the workplace or sexual harassment is less than 3% or around 3-4%. Whereas where organizations are not doing any prevention measures, there I've seen that people are going through harassment close to even 8 to 10%. That's as high as that. So it's very important. Though there is silence, please continue to talk about it. Please keep breaking the ice on it. And that is one that's very, very important. Lovely. The last myth, talking about safe and healthy workplaces would make employees awkward and uncomfortable. And I'd like to also add one more recent scenario that I came across where someone requested me saying, no, Vijay, it's all male crowd people. So I need only a male facilitator to address this issue. So, what is your thought on that?
So I think this misconception, it stems from the social stigma. So a few years back, if you look at it, women never spoke about menstruation. The Now we are at a phase where certain organizations are actually offering menstruation leaves. So I think all of this normalization came up after we talking about it, making it a very very common conversation. I think that's when we started to, address and we started to talk about it. We had more societal talks about it, talking about how a woman's body changes, what she undergoes during menstruation, and why is it so difficult during those days. I think now it has come to a phase that when people talk about menstruation, it's not a big deal. They understand that everybody's going through it and they acknowledge it as well. They are accommodative. I have seen workplaces where the teams have accommodated women during those phases, even though they do not be very vocal about it. They understand and they acknowledge each other. I think this normalization needs to happen by having frequent conversations. So when we say that this conversation, this kind of safe and creating an inclusive conversation needs to be normalized, it has to be spoken everywhere. It has to have that cascading effect.
Lovely. So thank you for shedding your light on breaking all the misconception. I'll just move on to the last segment of 1 minute mentoring. Here we need answers, very crisp answers in this segment. First question for you would be, what is the most important trait for a safe workplace?
It's respect.
The biggest challenge in workplace inclusivity.
It's unconscious bias because I don't know what I'm doing and I'm unconsciously doing it.
Bang on. What is the key to resolving workplace conflicts?
It's communication, it's effective communication because understanding comes into a picture and then resolution comes along with it. Understanding, collaboration, and resolution are the key for an effective communication.
One advice to victims on when they should speak up and report uh, any concerns.
So I one word answer. Let me just think for a minute then. So the one word answer for it is speak up. Even if you are not sure, I think the first step towards it is speaking up.
Lovely. Your one word advice to employees for contributing to a safe space. Respect is already taken.
Trust. I want to talk about trust here because I want every one of us to trust each other to make it a better workplace.
Excellent. Last, final closing remark. As a women leader, you have navigated through various challenges in your career. What is one key piece of advice you would give to young women who are just starting out in their career and aiming to fulfill their career aspirations?
So I think it's important to embrace our perspectives because all of us come from different backgrounds. We may not be very. It cannot be restrained to educational or cultural. We do have different backgrounds. So considering that fact, our perspectives and our thoughts come from certain levels, and I think it's important to embrace what we have and own it because the moment you own it, you're gonna move forward with what you have and then grow from it. So the opportunity to growth is definitely a step challenge. And only when you know what you are, you're going to have to move forward.
Lovely. So, with that, we come to the end of the episode. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to our guest, Jeevitha, for sharing her time, knowledge, and perspective with us. Your passion and expertise in creating safe and inclusive workplace have been truly inspiring. Thank you so much for all the practical advice, Jeevitha.
Thank you, Vijay, and thank you, team, for enabling this. I am so glad, I'm so stoked to have been a part of this discussion because sharing such practical insights and strategies is definitely something that I've been wanting to do for a while.
I love the conversation. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in and being part of this important conversation. And thank you for the overwhelming responses that you're giving on LinkedIn for all the previous episodes. We are seeing, though we may not have participants, listeners right now in the live, but we are seeing people going back and listening to those conversations and giving us inputs and feedback. Thank you so much for that. And definitely, we look forward for the next episode. And if you are looking at any particular topic as listeners, please do write to us on what topic you want us to talk about. And if you want to be part of this podcast as well, please do write to us and we'll be happy. And you can write to me, viji at securus.com. Until next time, stay committed to creating inclusive and safe workplace. Thank you and goodbye.